I've been doing buy or sell videos for a whole year now, so let's go back and see where I was right and where I was wrong. Let's start with episode 1, way back on February 3rd, and possibly my best buy of the year. Coaster Hour. The first thrilling next generation Vekoma in North America is announced in 2022 for 2023. I'm gonna buy this. This was actually my bold prediction for 2022. I said somewhere, somehow, a park is going to announce one of these Vekomas. There were two that really stood out for me. One was Kentucky Kingdom. I can see them doing this, especially if they take out T3. The other was Six Flags New England. They need a launch coaster. Six Flags does a lot of work with S&S Sansei. Maybe some other park somewhere will surprise us. I just don't have anything else on my radar. So, turns out it was Kodoland, and they were not on my radar. But regardless, we got our new generation Vekoma. Now, let's go to Kennywood. KP Coasters. Steel Curtain will have a full year of operation. I'm buying this. Every new coaster has the kinks it has to work out. Steel Curtain isn't exactly a complicated coaster. We're not talking about a hydraulic launch or an air compressed launch. This thing just has a lift chain and brakes. I don't see why that's so hard. I remember the first year for Twisted Colossus, and waiting in line for like 90 minutes and the thing breaking down 3 times. I'm thinking, it's a chain, it's brakes, what can go wrong? I think they just need to calibrate the sensors to get them just right. Steel Curtain is going into its 4th season. I think it'll only get more reliable with time. I asked Kennywood aficionado Bryce Kizak about this, and he said Steel Curtain had a good year. So hopefully it stays that way and they got all the kinks worked out. Okay, on to Six Flags New England. Theme Park Dive. Six Flags New England will announce a B&M dive for 2023. I'm gonna sell this, but it's a really tough sell. Obviously, I think this park needs a launch coaster. That being said, I don't know if they're going to want to pay for that. A launch coaster may not be ideal for that location. I say if they do remove Flashback, a small B&M dive coaster could go on that plot. I don't really see it happening, but I can't deny it is a possibility. This was before we knew what Salim Basul was up to. We were still excited about Dr. Diabolical, but still, I did not see this for New England. Now, on to episode 2 on February 21st. But while I was making episode 2, we got some news out of Cedar Point. Coaster John. An Intamin Stratocoaster will bite the dust in the next 5 years. This is really interesting, but I'm gonna sell. They'll do something to make it more reliable before they scrap it. LSMs are the wave of the present and the future. Can they get enough speed built up to clear that 420-foot top hat? Technology keeps advancing. Maybe they can get enough LSMs on there to even start climbing the top hat. Think of something like Wicked at Lagoon. I also got a buy or sell from OTS Coasters, saying they could replace this with a compressed air launch, but I don't think that track record is much better. I'm editing this in with news that Cedar Point will not reopen Top Thrill Dragster in 2022. That just made this question a whole lot more real. The park just had their state investigation finish, following the accident this past summer where someone got hit by a metal piece flying off the train. Cedar Fair is probably considering a lot of options here. First, I bet they install a big canvas over the queue. This is cheap and quick, and they can point to that and say this will never happen again. That would not take a whole year to get done. Next, maybe Cedar Fair takes this time to address the ride's reliability. I was thinking LSM's eventually being able to get this ride up to speed, but that may not be ready in the short term. Finally, they could be considering taking it down. It's possible they don't know what to do right now. And just like with Volcano, they shut it down to evaluate, and about a year later, they announced it would never reopen. This sounds like a bad scenario, but if they do that, you can guarantee they would replace it with something huge. An RMC T-Rex, maybe some kind of huge S&S air launch. It would be really exciting. So I am not as confident as I was before with my sell, but I'm willing to think Dragster still has a future at the park, no matter what that looks like. I think I've been on the right side of the Dragster story from the start. I was convinced that it would be altered before it got removed, and that seems to be the case. More from episode 2. S. Meyer 13. The first S&S access goes to Dollywood in 2023. I think this will go to a Six Flags park, so I'm selling this. I think the first access will be smaller, a more simple model that will fit in with a mid-sized Six Flags park, something like Fiesta Texas. I'm not saying Dollywood won't get one. I just think if they end up with one, they'll probably wait and get something bigger and longer. That access still isn't here, and Dollywood's 2023 coaster turned out to be a Vekoma, the family coaster Big Bear Mountain. Stafer DD. Disney's Star Wars Hotel will not be popular. Big sell on this one. If we've learned anything over the years, it's that people love Star Wars. They'll pay anything for Star Wars, and they love Disney, so they'll find a market of people who will fill up that hotel. It won't be me, but those people, they're out there. Turns out they are having problems selling rooms for $6,000 for 2 nights. I thought there would be enough Star Wars fanatics, but I guess not. Sam Diomede. Busch Gardens Tampa gets another major coaster in the next few years, this being due to Iron Gwazi not doing as well as planned due to timing of opening. I'm selling this. I think Iron Gwazi will do just fine. There was a lot of griping about them holding onto it for 2 years, but I think that'll all fade away fast. If they get a new ride, it won't be because Iron Gwazi was a failure. Given everything that's happened with SeaWorld over the last 2 years, I don't see them jumping right into another new major coaster for another 4 years at least. But hey, it's SeaWorld. They're unpredictable. I was right and wrong about this one. Iron Gwazi was a big success, but SeaWorld did not take their foot off the gas when it came to new coasters. At least at the end, I did hedge my bets. Nathan O. Six Flags will get a new CEO and go back to memberships in the next 5 years. This is so interesting to think about. What Six Flags is doing seems so risky, jacking up the prices before they jack up their quality. We definitely need to keep an eye on their performance this year. I can see it get to the point where the CEO's plan isn't working and he's forced out. The thing that really confuses me is the memberships. Why wouldn't they keep memberships when that's what everyone else seems to be doing? Monthly income, no expiration. It seems like a dream for a company like Six Flags. I'm buying that they'll bring back some kind of membership plan, even if they don't replace a CEO. I was right about this one. Six Flags did bring back a membership program, but then a month later, they dumped it and are back to a season pass. I really have no idea what they're thinking right now. I still think the never expiring memberships are the best for business. J Via 123456789. New Wonder Woman ride ends up being in your top 3 at the park. I'm selling this. Right now, my top 3 at Magic Mountain are Twisted Colossus, X2, and West Coast Racers. I have Jersey Devil way below West Coast Racers, so unless Wonder Woman is a whole lot better, or I'm able to ride it at a good time when it's actually running well, I don't see it passing West Coast Racers, but I do think it's possible. I know, this is just my opinion, but it turns out I was right. Wonder Woman is a solid number 5 in the park. Gav Hearn. California's Great America will become a top 5 Cedar Fair park in the next 10 years. So if it wants to be a top 5 Cedar Fair park, it would have to be better than Knott's or Canada's Wonderland. I think it's close to those parks already. However, I'm gonna sell this. I think it was on track to do it, but that whole grand plan they had doesn't really seem to be in the works anymore, at least not in the short term. They were talking about a Hyper and an Impulse, and possibly an RMC Grizzly. Maybe this does get done over the next 10 years, but what will the other parks add in the meantime? A Giga for Knott's, another B&M for Canada's Wonderland, maybe a surf coaster. I don't think CGA will overtake them. Well, to say it's not going to be a top 5 Cedar Fair park, or even a Cedar Fair park, or a park at all, yeah, this is just sad. Moving on to episode 3 from March 17th. Devon 714. Knott's will remove the classic flywheel launch on Montezuma's Revenge. As soon as I heard this was closing for a year, that was the first thing I thought of. This happened to Psyche Underground at Wallaby, Belgium. That got rid of the flywheel for an LIM launch back in 2013. I don't know what kind of problems Montezuma's launch gave the park, or if the shutdown is totally unrelated, but unless they're just messing with the brakes, the amount of time this is going to be down tells me it's probably the launch. I would still rather have an LIM launch than no Montezuma at all. Maybe this was obvious, but it does seem that Montezuma will be getting LSMs. I didn't see the randomized launch coming, but with LSMs, that's possible, so why not? Speaking of Knott's, let's end episode 3 with Barry. The Knott's Giga will be built later this year. When I first heard this rumor, I thought it was insane. Then we saw the leak plans and I realized that Cedar Fair was really going for this thing. Assuming those plans are real, and I've never heard anyone imply that they're not, the only thing standing in their way is city approval. Knott's is surrounded by homes and businesses, but they do already have a 300-foot ride at Supreme Scream. The big question here is noise. If they fill the track with sand and explain that to the city, maybe they get away with it. If I had to bet on it, I would say it happens. It's hard to imagine seeing that right in the middle of Knott's, but if Cedar Fair wants to do it, I won't complain. I was skeptical, but I was naive enough to buy this and it didn't work out. Maybe next year. Let's move on to episode 4 from April 7th. Theme Park Avenue. Cedar Point makes a new Gen Vekoma family coaster next. I'm selling this, but with one caveat. If Iron Dragon gets to the point where it's too hard to maintain, and Cedar Point wants to replace it with something similar, possibly with a Dragon Slayer type theme a la Adventureland, I could see them going with a Vekoma suspended family coaster. That would be a really cool and very appropriate replacement. However, that's very specific, and I don't think that's going to happen in the short term. I think Cedar Point's next coaster is going to be a lot bigger than that. I was right to sell this, but I was wrong about Cedar Point's next coaster being a big one. With Dragster's renovation coming soon, it seems like that's sucking the air out of the room when it comes to a major new coaster. Now, watch me be wrong once again. Benji Storm. Worlds of Fun will not get a new coaster anytime soon. How long can Cedar Fair torture a park? You think 13 years is too long and it can't go much further? Michigan's Adventure has something to say about that. I'm buying this because I can't bet on Cedar Fair to add anything new to Worlds of Fun. Some parks aren't easy to predict. Carowinds, Kings Island, Canada's Wonderland. They all get new coasters every 4 years or so. For all the small parks, it's impossible to know. If your home Cedar Fair park is Worlds of Fun, like it is for me now, I guess Kings Island isn't that far away, so go there. Cedar Fair coming through for Worlds of Fun's 50th anniversary. Who would have seen it coming? Maybe someone out there has been predicting a new coaster for Worlds of Fun for 14 years now, and they have finally been vindicated. Now, listen to me be super sick on episode 5 on May 5th. Before we get started, I just have to say, if this audio sounds weird, it's because I'm really sick. I'll try to make this sound as good as possible. We'll start with Janitor. Iron Gwazi will be the best RMC, better than Steel Vengeance. I'm doing this video before I've ridden Iron Gwazi, so I can take a truly wild guess at this. But I do know my coaster preferences, and I have to sell this. I don't think I'm gonna like Iron Gwazi more than Steel Vengeance. Iron Gwazi is not a short ride by any means, but this has 30 fewer seconds of ride time than Steel Vengeance. I think Iron Gwazi can be a top 5 coaster, but no matter how great those 47 seconds are, when it ends, Steel Vengeance still has a whole other RMC Raptor for you, or One-Sided Twisted Colossus. Those are 30-second rides, and Steel Vengeance is great from the drop to the final breaks. Again, my opinion, but Iron Gwazi didn't even come close to Steel Vengeance. I thought it was going to be a top 5 coaster for me, and it just missed at number 7. Big Blue Amusement Productions. Cedar Point will only get one new coaster this decade. Cedar Point's been kinda sporadic with their coasters, going 6 years between Maverick and Gatekeeper, but then adding 2 more in the next 5 years. If they add something in 2023, which seems possible if not probable, that's 5 years from Steel Vengeance. Will they go all the way to 2030 without adding another one? I'm selling that. I think there will be 2 at least, possibly 3 depending on how big those 2 are. Cedar Point is at the point where they have to take out rides to add new ones, so that's something else to keep in mind. What would they be willing to retire to add the next big thrill ride? Gemini? Top Thrill Dragster? Magnum? Please don't. I still think we'll see something in the near future near the Wicked Twister site, and then one more by 2027 or 2028. I was right that a new coaster kinda sorta replaced Wicked Twister. Not what I was thinking, but it counts. Now, they have one coaster by 2023. It seems very, very likely we'll get one more by 2030. We're gonna end this with my worst miss. This one being in episode 6 from May 23rd. At least I got my voice back. Rings the Gamer 6. 2022 will be the last season for Wildcat at Hershey Park, and it'll be RMC. I'm selling this. I've been pushing RMC Wildcat for a long time, but it seems way more likely to get Titan Track. It's GCI's original coaster. They just put Titan Track on Darien Lake's Predator. They're probably gonna push this hard for other coasters. This could happen as soon as next year. There's only one downside of Titan Track Wildcat, and that is, it's hard to sell as a new coaster. RMC Wildcat, absolutely, but not the same layout with a smoother track. This will not reset their clock to get a new coaster, something the park may want to avoid. Alright, I'll take the L on that one, and people definitely let me know about it. I'm happy that RMC is coming in to give Hershey Park that much needed hybrid, but I don't like being wrong. That's all for last year. I'll be sure to revisit these at the end of the year, and see if anything else was proven right or wrong. Of course, along with all of my 2023 episodes that come out every month. I want to thank all of you for giving me these buy or sell ideas. You make this series possible. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here, please consider giving me a sub. I have a playlist with all of these buy or sell episodes. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.